Hey everyone, how you all doing? Hey Miss Maddie, hey Miss Linda, I see you all. Let me wait for a few more people to come on in the room. Come on in the room, come on in the room. Miss Maddie, let me know, or Miss Linda, let me know if you can hear me. Okay, I know. I know some people probably hadn't gotten home and stuff like that, but it is uh yeah, it's really coming down. Actually, I just got home like what 15 minutes ago. So I was rushing, trying to I was rushing trying to get here so that I could go live on time because when I tell you all that rain was something fierce, I'm trying to tell you. That rain was just like it was just unreal. So but yeah, thank you all for joining. We're gonna get started, waiting just for a few more people to come on in the room so we can get going. So we can get going, get going, get going. Oh man. What's up, Bella? Real talk. How y'all doing? Yeah, I see you. I see you, Miss Linda. How you doing? Everybody's safe. And I live out here in Ellenwood, and I was looking outside, and the rain just subsided. So I hope people's internets are not down. Yeah. Then I got a text from some people saying that, I may not make it on because I'm stuck in traffic. And so different things like that. So that was nice of them to let me know, but it's okay. They can catch the replay. I'm glad, to see because, oh my goodness, Miss Linda, you've been affected already. You've been affected already. We're gonna pray for those lights to come back on. 'Cause it's tough out here. So we are going to get started in just one moment. Um let me get my Bible pulled up. Yeah. Yeah. I mean, other than that, it's just been one thing after another. You know how you have one of those days and it's just like life be lifing. You know what I'm saying? Something is always going on, something is always happening. It's just like, God, come on, not today. My youngest son just had a flat tire. Shout out to my god sister Daria for being there with me in the clutch. uh she got his tire changed, and so now he's at home safe and sound. So we had to get a new tire in this morning. Then I was talking to my middle son. He was having a rough day. I'm just like, life is just life, but it's all good. you know and that's what I be trying to explain to them, because in this day and age, it's like the smallest little thing sets them off, and it's like I got to center them back, allow them to think. So yeah, life sometimes just be life, and that's what it is. But nevertheless, um we're gonna go ahead and get started. with our Bible study. Um, if you just want to do a little form of ministry, you can share my live, with everybody. Share it on your page, share it wherever, share it, you know, because guess what? We shouldn't keep the word to ourselves. It needs to be out there in the atmosphere. I know, Miss Maddie. Tell me about it. Lord have mercy. Whew. Thank you. I needed to hear that. Because, I tell you, sometimes I just be like, Lord, what on earth? But as my good little god sister, my little goddaughter be saying, Ayana, to God be the glory. That's all I can say. To God be the glory. And so when days like this happen, like when I get off, I'm gonna go ahead and go back to the gym so I can walk, get myself centered, right? Get myself centered and just continue going with the flow. But nevertheless, I want to share something with you all, and I'm gonna go ahead and get into my Bible study. But I want to share something that happened the other day. So it was that Saturday? I won't say Saturday or Friday. It was, well, one of those days. What's up, Miss Mary? I got a text from one of my god sisters, Lulu. She had texted me, and it's so funny. My god sister, her name is Lulu, y'all. But it's so funny how God works, right? It's just it's so profound, because a lot of times, I'm sorry, y'all. Okay. Sorry, y'all. My youngest son just had to ask a question, so I apologize. I'm glad I went into it. Anyhow, I got this you know how you get a text, but it's actually a voicemail. So it's really not like, well, it's a text voice, or a voice text, however you want to say it. And so when I listened to the message, she was singing this song. And when I heard the song, I just started smiling, right? I just started smiling because the song that she sung to me, I had not heard that song in I don't know how long. And it was a song that I led when I was growing up, when I was in the we called it the Sunbeam Choir at my old church. I was in, the children's choir, we called it Sunbeam. And there was this song that I used to lead called Nothing is Impossible, right? And so when she sung me that song, she was saying, this song right here just popped in my head, and I just was like, really? I was like, what made you, and she's like, I don't know. She said, I was just sitting here and all of a sudden, nothing is impossible. And, she thought about me. And so she ended up, like I said, she sung the song. I still got it because I'm going to play it to her one day. Because there was this part where I used to, holler on the part, right? And so when she shared that song, I was like, wow. And the first thing that really came to my mind is the reason it may have popped in her head. I texted her back and I said, maybe God is just reminding you that nothing is too impossible for him. Right. And so, she shared that she had been praying for some things, and, and it kind of blessed her, my words. Blessed her to make her realize, like, maybe God gave you that song for a reason, that nothing is too impossible for him. And, like I said, she said that she had been praying for some things. And, so I was trying to be encouraging. So in that moment, that really touched my heart, that, God just, used her in a mighty way, because she doesn't know, in reality, the song blessed me too, because how you've been sitting and you've been pondering about some things, and there's some things in your life that just aren't quite up to the par that you want them to be, like, God, I want to start this, and God, I want to start that. And sometimes as I sat and I started thinking about the words that she shared with me or the song that she sent me, I literally just kind of teared up. And I think the reason I teared up is because I believe that God was reminding me too. He was reminding me that about some things that I had been praying for as well. And I think in that moment, not only was God reminding her, but he used her to remind me that there's nothing too impossible for God. And so I just started thinking about that. And I was like, man, God, you are so kind. You're just so faithful on how you move. And I know I've said this before, is that God moves strategically, right? He moves strategically. Look how he created the earth. He did it, in a structured type form. So the way he used her to bless her, but he also blessed me through her. And then I was able to bless her in return. And I just had to sit there and I just literally, like I said, I just literally teared up because I just found that so profound on how God was reminding the both of us. Now, I don't know what she was praying for, and she doesn't know what I was praying for. But the thing about it is, God took the time to tell both of us that he was reminding us that nothing was too impossible for him. Nothing is too impossible for him. And so that just made me started realizing, I started thinking about all the things that I have been praying for. And guess what? It's impossible. Some of the things, if I look at the word impossible, and I looked this up, I really studied this really good. I looked at the word impossible, right? And when I looked up the word impossible, it means something like an action or event that cannot happen or be achieved, meaning something that's impossible, we think it's unattainable, right? It's unfeasible. It's not able to happen. It's not able to exist. It's not, or it's not even true. And so I was sitting there and I was thinking, and so I ask you all tonight, have you ever prayed and asked God for something so big that your mind couldn't comprehend? Right? So like I got a prayer in the fire right now about my nonprofit. And it's just like, it's so big, and I'm thinking about it so much. And I'm thinking about it so much that my mind just cannot comprehend it. And I've asked God for some pretty big things, but I believe as I've gotten older, my list has gotten bigger and my list is starting to get longer. And sometimes I just wonder, are those things God can do? And it's like, I personally sometimes can put God in a box, right? Because, I dream big, I think big, I have so much on my mind as it pertains to myself and everything that I have going on. And it's just like, God, can really, when I say something big, I'm asking for God to do something grand, something that man can't even do. Something so big and complex. Again, my mind cannot even comprehend it. I remember years ago, in my life, my house was foreclosed on, and I've shared some of my testimony with you. My house was foreclosed on. I filed for bankruptcy. And the main thing I said was, Lord, give us the place to stay. Now I want you to catch this story. The only thing I said was, God, give us a place to stay. Right. And so after I lost my home, I ended up me and my sons, we just ended up moving in with my mom and dad. Right. So then the next prayer I prayed, I said, God, just just help us get us our own place. Just help us get to this apartment. Give us something. And then guess what? God gave me an apartment, right? Because I was living with my parents. All I wanted to do was just get to an apartment. And so, you know, that's what I did. I got into our apartment. I asked for a place now, and God gave me a place. He gave me a 3-bedroom apartment. Now, in that three-bedroom apartment, you had to have a sense of humor. I mean, my oldest son had his own room, but my younger 2 children, they were sharing room, right? So then I remember my next prayer. If I think about I was like, God, help me move into something bigger, right? I was just praying. And so then God afforded us to move into a townhouse. So here we are. We then went from my parents' house to an apartment to a townhouse. Now, each time I prayed, I prayed according to my situation. I prayed according to my circumstances, right? But then I went back and I said, God, this is what I want. I want a house where my kids don't have to share a room. I want a house where even though my kids got a room, I want an office so I can work from home. It's like I made a whole list of grand lists. Even though my situation was saying something different, I was foreclosed and the house was bankrupt. I've had to file bankruptcy and we lost our home. My mindset was like, at this point, God, this is what I want. It was something bigger than what my situation was doing. And guess what? It happened. God gave me a house where all 3 of my kids had their own room. God gave me a house, well, not only with my 3 kids having their own room and I having my own room, but I also got my office. Everything that I asked for, God gave it to me. But notice how I asked. And every time I asked, my prayers got bolder and my prayers got bigger. And each time, at the right time, God delivered. Notice how my prayers got bolder and bolder and bolder. See, when we ask God for something, the thing about it is then we minimize it, because we believe that we're asking too much. It's like, God, I want this big house, but just give us a place to stay. And I was like, well, okay, then I was trying to give you the big house, but let me go ahead and just let you sit with your parents. Right? I started minimizing God because when I was in my situation, I was too focused on the situation and not on how God is. Sometimes we ask God because we think we're asking God too much. Or we be like, oh, I don't want to ask that because God just did this for me last week. And there are literally people out there that literally think like that, But the thing about it is we don't ask God for big because we're too focused on our situation. Our pockets are not saying 5-bedroom house. Our pockets are not saying greater car. Our pockets are not saying bigger and better. Our pockets are saying you are right exactly where you're supposed to be. So just ask according to your situation. Because we think what we're asking God for is just too impossible. Our minds think that because, again, of our situation, because of what we've been going through. We think it's too much. We think it's out of reach. We think it's over the top. And because our minds are so small, we minimize our prayers. And then when God gives us the mediocre, we get upset. God, thank you, but this is what I really wanted. God, and if you go back to my foreclosure and my bankruptcy story, there was a difference in my ask. The more I began to ask, the more I got specific, the more my prayer got bigger. I laid all my cards on the table and God delivered. He will do the same for you. You have to write the vision, make it plain, lay down your specifics, and God is going to deliver at the right moment, at the right time. But we're so busy focused on our situation and what we don't have that we forget to ask God. We forget that God is infinite. We forget how God is all powerful and all knowing. We forget who he is. We forget how he has healed the sick. We forget how he has raised the dead. We forget that God can do the impossible. But it was according, if you go back to my story, it was according to my ask. It was according to my mindset. It was according to my situation that my mind was thinking so small. And I failed to realize that God can do the impossible. It is possible for him to do the impossible. It's okay, whatever you're asking God for, whether you're asking him to heal your body, whether he's asking, you're asking for God to, help your son, and you can slowly see the breakthrough. At least you can see it. You see God is moving. The Bible tells us that if we ask in his name, he is able to do exceedingly above and abundantly above all we can ask. Years ago, and just FYI, for those who took my class last month, I'm doing a separate class in July. I read this book called Dangerous Prayers. It's a book called Dangerous Prayers. And the subtitle of the book was called Because Following Jesus Was Never Meant to Be Safe. Because following Jesus was never meant to be safe. Dangerous Prayers, because following Jesus was never meant to be safe. That is my July class, just FYI. And so one of the quotes that he quoted in this book about how we pray, this guy, he was, somebody was telling him that his prayers were lame, right? And he didn't understand that. He said, the biggest mistake I made in my prayer life, the reason my prayers were so lame is because I prayed too safely. I was in my comfort zone with God, built on lame, half-hearted communication. Did you hear that? The biggest mistake I made in my prayer life, the reason my prayers were so lame is because I prayed too safely. I was in my comfort zone with God, built on lame, half-hearted communication. I can guarantee you that each and every person that is on this live tonight is asking or have been praying for God to do something big in their lives. I can guarantee it. Everybody that is watching, everybody that's going to watch the replay, I can guarantee you there is something going on in their life that is big to them. Now, my big may not be your big, and your big may not be my big, but somebody, they're needing a breakthrough for their son. They've already put it in the comments. Somebody is just needing to be healed in their body. Somebody just need a peace of mind. Everybody on this live, everybody watching, I can guarantee you that everybody is asking God to do something big in their lives. But because of our mindset and because of our situation, we think it's off limits. We think it's unreachable. But I'm here to remind you tonight that nothing is off limits when it comes to God. Nothing is unreachable when it comes to God. Nothing is out of touch when it comes to God. There is just nothing impossible when it comes to God. There's nothing impossible. Come on, Lulu. So I was telling them about the text that me and you exchanged a few days ago. And so as part of, I want to talk about that because I'm talking about it's not impossible. And so if the words of that song says, nothing is impossible if you trust God. Nothing is impossible if you believe in his word. It is no secret what God can do. What God has done for others, he will do the same for you. Oh, nothing. Oh, nothing. Nothing is too impossible. And I just want you to know the words of that song because I want to break that song down to you. So the first part of the song said, nothing is impossible if you trust in God. If you trust in God. See, trust is the firm belief in the reliability, the truth, the ability or strength of someone or something. It means if you trust in something, you have the confidence in something, you believe in something, you have faith in something, you have the assurance in something. The Bible tells us in Proverbs, trust in the Lord with all of your heart and lean not to your own understanding. So if that is a command, that means it's waiting for you to take action. It's waiting for you to move. It's waiting for you to trust. So trust is an action word. It's not passive. It's powerful. It's just not something you're hoping that's going to work out. It's knowing that even if the numbers don't add up, even if the doctor's report is bad, even if the door was slammed in your face, it is locked, God is still God. And there is nothing impossible for him as long as you trust in him. If we think about Moses, right? If we think about Moses, he was called to lead the Israelites to the promised land. And when God called on Moses, he was like, I want you to go down there. I want you to tell Pharaoh to let my people go. And Moses said, hey, God, thank you for such an honor. But I think you might need to get somebody else to do it. And God is probably like, why? He was like, because I don't speak too well. I stutter too much. Can you find somebody else? And God was like, no, I want you. Why? Because I'm going to be there with you every step of the way. And I think that was in Exodus where he told Moses that you rest assured, I'm going to walk with you. I'm going to be right there every step of the way. See, we serve a God that no matter where we go, he's going to be right there every step of the way. So what looks impossible is actually possible because as long as we put our hands in God's hands, we have to know and we have to believe that everything is going to work out. And the good thing about Moses is Moses eventually stepped out in obedience. He was trusting God. That's all he did. He started trusting God. And whether we know it or not, even though Moses discounted himself, even though Moses said, get somebody else to do it, my thing is God uses the weak. God doesn't call the equipped, he equips the called. He equipped Moses to do exactly what he called them to do. And so Moses went down there and he finally convinced Pharaoh to let the people go, which he did. And once they were going, guess what happens? They get to a Red Sea. And guess what? When they looked to the left, it was nothing but water. When they looked to the right, it was nothing but water. When they looked behind them, Pharaoh's people was on their tail. But right in the front of them, it was nothing but water. The people started complaining. Yeah, they did. Because I ain't gonna lie, I probably would have been one of them complaining in the back. Dude, how are you gonna do this to us? You gonna set us free and then we're gonna get right here at the water? Moses didn't budge. God said, raise your staff. And guess what? The Red Sea opened and the people walked right on through. They walked right on through, all because it was impossible, but God did the possible. It looked impossible. It looked impossible, but God made it happen. God made it possible. Even in our circumstances, I don't know what your Red Sea is tonight. I don't know what your Red Sea as far as dealing with anxiety or dealing with jealousy, or your Red Sea might be dealing with something that you need a breakthrough in. But I can guarantee you, if you stand right there long enough, God is going to give you instructions. He's going to tell you to raise your staff so you can walk right on through. Why? Because nothing is too impossible for God. Nothing. If God called you to it, that's the phrase everybody says. If God brought you to it, he's going to bring you through it. And that's exactly how he did it for Moses. He did the same thing for Daniel. Daniel was thrown into the lion's den. The situation seemed difficult. And what it seemed impossible that Daniel was not going to make it through the night. I mean, and the people around the king, they set Daniel up. They was like, king, but didn't you say if they don't? Yeah, I said it. He had to follow through with his word. And so he threw Daniel into the lion's den. He couldn't sleep. He tossed and he turned. But as sure as the next morning, he went and opened up that lion's den, Daniel was standing right there. Why? Because Daniel knew what seemed impossible, God did the possible. God protected him through the night. God is our protection. And sometimes we fail to realize that when our situations arise. And I can't sit here and say that every time a situation arises, I don't feel some type of way, because I do. But I also have to take a step back and realize, if God did it before, if God did it for Daniel, if God did it for Moses, if God did it for Ruth, if God did it for David, if God did it for everybody else, God can do the same for me. Because his faithfulness never wavers. And like Moses, just like I was saying, we all at some point may wrestle with some fear and doubt, but when we step in faith, when we step out on faith, we experience the faithfulness and the fullness in ways that our minds can't even imagine, even how we got through this situation. There's been some times in my life I have been back in a corner. There have been times I have been back in a corner. And all I could do was just go from side to side. I wasn't about to hit nothing. All I could do from side to side, just hoping, nothing else. I was in a corner so bad, I was like, God, I can't take another hit. But the moment I surrendered and I said, God, it's all you. It's like the Red Sea opened up. So we got to understand that nothing is impossible if you trust God. The next part of that song says, nothing is impossible if you believe in his word. Key word, believe. See, believe means you accept something as true. I want you to go and I want you to know about the book of Luke, verse 1 and 45. Luke verses 1 and 45 says, blessed is she who has believed that the Lord would fulfill his promises to her. Luke 1 and 45 says, blessed is she who has believed that the Lord would fulfill his promises to her. In this particular scripture, the angel Gabriel is talking to Mary. You know, the angel Gabriel said, hey, I know you are a virgin, you know, but guess what? You're going to bear a child. Now, fast forward to one of us. Seriously, just think about it. If an angel came to you, you was a virgin, and was going to tell you that you are going to bear a child, let me know your reaction. Because I know my reaction would be like, the devil is a lie. I can't afford a child right now. My situation and my circumstances aren't at its best. But see, Mary didn't back down from what the angel had said. You know, Mary just took it like a breath of fresh. She took it as being honored. You know, I'm not quite sure if I probably would have taken it as honored, but I'm just saying she took it as, you know, like it was everyday life. She took it like striding, just walking this thing out. And so I had to sit there and I had to admire Mary for a minute, because I had to think about that this verse serves as an example for believers today to trust God's promises and to demonstrate faith even when faced with seemingly impossible situations. I just shared with you the story, how I faced the bankruptcy, how I faced the foreclosure, right? Those were things that I had to face. They weren't the best situations, but guess what? I had to face the circumstances, and then I had to deal with it some type of way. But Mary took it at heart. She felt blessed because she knew what she was carrying. And so she decided that I'm just going to have the faith, and I'm just going to believe and stand on God and his promises. How many of us do that today? How many? That part. I would have tried to run away too, Miss Maddie. You know, how many of us, when we're faced with a situation, how can we set it? Can we be assured that we're going to be like Mary and just be like, I'm just going to stand on God's promises? Because sometimes we say we're going to stand on God's promises, and it looks like we're standing on God's promises, but it's like that one little thing happened. God's promises then went out the window. Am I the only one? Because if I'm by myself, it's all good. I'm like, God, you said your word this, you said this, but I don't see it going that way. You know, I see the breakthrough coming, but it's not the breakthrough that I'm expecting. So God, I'm going to need you just to move just a little bit faster. So before I break down, you know, I'm like that sometimes. I try not to be like that all the time, but sometimes I'm really trying to hold on to that trust, but sometimes that trust go out the window, and I'm just trying to keep it real. Sometimes that trust go out the window because I'm asking God to do something, and I'm asking God for this to happen, and it looks like this is happening, but then it seems like it just go to the left. But the thing, the words, the song taught us, nothing is impossible if you believe. In other words, if you believe his word, it will manifest itself. Because a lot of times when things happen, we like to put our own hands in the mix. And the moment that it goes wrong, the moment that it goes left, then we want to go to God. God, I'm sorry for doing it. I'm sorry for butting in. I'm sorry for putting my hand in it. Can you clean it up? You know, God, I surrender it all now. And the moment you surrender it, it will manifest itself. It seems like everything begins to work out. But there have been too many times, and Miss Maddie, I am with you. You know, you pray for your children. You pray for them to succeed. You pray for them to do all the things that you know that they can do. And it seems like they're getting right there. And just as soon as they get there, something else happens. And then I'm right there trying to pick up the pieces. And God is looking at me like, I thought you said you wanted me to handle this. What are you doing? But I have to realize God want to take my children through some things to build their faith, to build their trust, to build their belief. He want to take them through some things too. And as a parent, sometimes we have to step back and let God be God and stop trying to save them every time they get in trouble. I had to learn that. And I know sometimes it's the parent in us that wants to go and help. Sometimes it's the parent in us that want to save. But sometimes they're going to have to learn to fall and reach out to God to pick them right back up. That's when we have the opportunity as parents to teach them about who the Lord and Savior Jesus Christ is. And so we have to learn to just not only trust his word, but we have to believe his word. Why? Because the word of God says his word will not return void. His word accomplishes what he sends it out to do. So you got nothing is impossible if you trust in God. Nothing is impossible if you believe in his word. And the third part of that song, it says, it is no secret what God can do, what he's done for others, he will do the same for you. It took me to Romans 2:11, where it says, for there is no partiality in God. There is no partiality in God. Well, what does that mean? That means favor is not limited. That means miracles aren't in short supply. That means God does not favor one person or group over another. His judgment is impartial and fair. His judgment is impartial and fair. He is no respecter of persons. He does not judge based on outward appearances or external factors. I had to go back and I started reading that story for Mary again because it made me realize what God did for Mary, and he'll do the same for you. So don't covet what someone else has received. Don't yearn for what somebody else has. Don't desire somebody else's lifestyle. Don't do that. The Bible tells us don't covet our neighbor. We shouldn't try to be like other people. The only person God wants us to be is our own selves. Because guess what? What he's done for others, he'll do the same for you. So when I hear somebody succeeding, I celebrate them. If they get a breakthrough, I celebrate their breakthrough. If they got a win, I celebrate their win. I claim that for them. I celebrate with them. Because their breakthrough, when I see others getting the breakthrough, it's proof to me that God is still working and he's somewhere in my neighborhood. It's proof that God is still working. So a lot of times we have to understand if God did it for whoever else in the Bible, that he'll do it for us. If he did it for Esther, he'll do it for us. If God bless this person with a child, and this person with a home, and this person with a book, and this person with a conference, God, celebrate it, because it just lets you know, it's proof in the pudding that God is still on the move. And whether we know it or not, God is still performing miracles, even to this day. Sometimes when people share stuff with me and I hear their stories and their testimonies, I'll be like, my God, because some of the stuff I've heard, I'm like, only a God, like the God we serve, can get you out of that situation there. You hear people with stage 4 cancer that have been healed. You hear people going through different things. They've been on drugs. They've pretty much lost everything. And they are still standing. They are still standing with their with their heads held high. Excuse me, my stuttering right there. They are still standing. And the thing about it is, I have to remind myself, if God did it for them, he's showing you that you're next in line. There is a song by Shirley Caesar that says, you're next in line for a miracle. Your breakthrough, you're next in line. So when you see somebody else in their moment of glory, celebrate them, love on them, encourage them, continue to push them. Because guess what? At some point, it's going to be your turn. And you're going to want somebody to encourage you, to push you, to honor you. It just lets me know, when I hear about God and the things that he's doing in people's lives, it just lets us know that we're next in line. So you cannot walk impossible faith. You cannot walk in an impossible faith and still entertain logical fear. You just can't do it. They just can't coexist together. Your faith can't believe that God is impossible while your mind is still comprehending that there's a lot of fear going on. The thing about that we need to learn is that if God said it, it will come to pass. If he's done it before, he'll do it again. If you believe in him, your impossibility will become your testimony. I always think about people. I used to do a show a long time ago called Living to Inspire. It was a virtual show that I used to do. And I used to interview these different people and some of the things that they've been through. Like I interviewed a young lady. She had a heart transplant, somebody who was given AIDS at one point, somebody who was homeless, somebody's son that went through a rape ordeal and still came out on top. And the miracles of God are just flowing and flowing and flowing and flowing. It just lets me know that God is still in the miracle working business. And so I ask you today, what's something you've been calling impossible that you need to place back in God's hand? What is something that you like? It's just so big, Dawn, you just won't understand. No, I may not understand. My small mind would be like, yeah, you might not want to do that. But you know what your heart desire. You know what you've been talking to God about. You know what the desire that God has planted inside of you. What's something you've been calling impossible that needs to be placed back in God's hand? Whether it's your son, whether it's your daughter, whether it's your husband, your marriage, your relationship, your situationship, it does not matter. We have to get to a point to understand that nothing is too impossible for God. I get it. Your finances may not be the best. I get it that the spouse may not be acting right. I get it. But there is a time and a place where we're going to have to surrender everything we have going on and just say, God, I know this situation looks impossible, but I know and I trust in your promises that your word says that if I ask in your name, that you will give me exceedingly abundantly above all I ask. God, I know you want me to trust you. So help me trust you, God. Trust in the Lord. Help me trust in you and lean not to my own understanding. Only thing you have to do is just go and lay your cards on the table before the Lord and let him know that even though it looks impossible, but with you, all things are possible. With you, all things are possible. It even says that in Luke 1:37, which is one of my favorite scriptures. For with God, all things are possible. What promises are you struggling to believe right now? What promises are you struggling to believe right now? If you caught nothing I said tonight, God can do the impossible. It may be impossible in our minds, but nothing is too impossible for God. And so I pray that while you're watching this Bible study, or if you're even watching if you're watching the replay, I pray that this Bible study pushes you. I pray that it reminds you. I pray that it shifts you. I pray that it reignites your faith that God has not run out of miracles. His promises are not short in supply and demand. They're not short at all. God is still handing out blessings, and he has your name on one of them. So I challenge you today. Whatever in your life has been seeming impossible, pray that dangerous prayer. Pray that dangerous prayer. And know that if you are specific and you believe, that you'll eventually find out that there is nothing impossible for God. Nothing. The words of the song again, nothing is impossible if you trust in God. Nothing is impossible if you believe in his word. There is no secret what God can do, because what he's done for others, he will do the same for you. So there is nothing impossible for God. And that is my Bible study for tonight. That is my Bible study for tonight, to open your eyes and to help you realize there are so many stories in the Bible. I can think of so many. I can think of Joseph, Abraham. God did the impossible in all of their God did the impossible in all of their lives. Paul, I'm gonna tell you this and then I'm gonna let you go. Paul, to me, is one of the most amazing stories in the Bible. I love myself some Paul. Paul was off the chain in the beginning. He was killing folk. If you was a Christian, he was taking you out. Paul was just ruthless. He was so gangster. But he was in I know people probably looked at him like, man, he's just a useless case. Ain't nothing gonna change him. It's too impossible. Because of the way he was just wild. He was out there. But the moment God got a hold of him, I imagine somebody had to be praying for Paul. Because the moment God got hold of him, he was on his way to Damascus and God covered his eyes. And when he got over to Damascus, I hope I'm saying this right, God took the scales off and Paul became a totally different person. Totally different person. So that lets me know, even Miss Maddie, when we're thinking for a breakthrough for our children, if God can do that, God is still in the miracle working business. He is. There's nothing too impossible for God. I ask you again, what's something you've been calling impossible that you need to place back in God's hands? Your ministry, your book, your conference, your children, your relationship. It may look impossible now, but I guarantee you, if you just continue to keep your hands in his hands, God is going to deliver. And when he delivers, he's going to deliver so much that the only thing you can say is, to God be the glory. To God be the glory. So I pray that you know that you're next in line for a miracle. Your breakthrough, it's about to come. I pray that you know that God has a blessing with your name on it. Because at the proper time, you will reap what you sow. So all you have to do is trust, believe. Trust and believe. And know that no matter what you face, God is going to be right there to see you through. So that is my Bible study tonight. Again, I want to thank my good friend, my big sister, Lulu, for texting me when she texted me. Because it's the basis of my Bible study. It was just a reminder for the both of us to just know that no matter what we're going through, God can do the impossible. I just, like I said, I had to, really sit in that after she texted me. I had to sit in it because I was like, wow, God, thank you. Thank you. Thank you. I promise you all, God is so faithful. God is so faithful. Whatever you need him to do, God is just so faithful. He's waiting to do it for you. All you have to do is just continue to trust and believe. And if you can't trust and believe, ask him to help your unbelief. God, I want to believe. God, help me to believe. God, help me to trust. Get you some scriptures. recite your words, because the more you say it out loud, those words will manifest in your spirit. And as they begin to manifest, you'll begin to believe it. You'll begin to believe it. That's why we should always study the word. Study the word for yourselves. I know people, I love you all coming on, but sometimes you got to study the word for yourself. I'm just a vessel God is using. But I encourage you to just continue to keep your hand in God's hand and just continue to realize that nothing is too impossible for God. So again, that is my Bible study. I done got all little. I just think about the goodness of God and just everything that he's done. But God, I thank you for this lesson. I thank you for using my sister who shared with me, who had the bravery and the courage to share with me, because she could have kept it to herself. But I thank God for using her to share with me, to remind both of us that God can do anything that we ask him to do. He can do the impossible. So thank you, Lou. Love you, sis. All right. I know I was in the middle of praying, but I got sidetracked. But God, I thank you for this opportunity to share. I thank you for the word that you shared with me that I was able to share with others. And I pray that you continue to help them continue believing and trusting in you. And God, I pray for all of the different prayer requests. Somebody is praying for a breakthrough for their brother. Somebody is praying for a breakthrough for their son. Real Talk is believing you for a bigger and better conference. God, there's so much on all of our hearts that we just have something big for you to do. And we know that you're going to do it as long as we continue to trust and believe it will be so. Amen. Thank you. You be well. You be blessed. I love you all. And I will see you all next time. Bye.